Let's go to Paul and Shari. What are you guys thinking? Are we heading towards a clear Labor win, as Chris indicated?
Well, I've spoken to some Labor sources just as the polls closed, and they are expecting to have a Labor win tonight. Depends whether it's minority or majority government. And what they're saying is that they're expecting much bigger swings in the seats where you've got long-time incumbent MPs retiring. People like Victor Dominello, Brad Hazzard, those sort of seats, whereas there might be less smaller swings in the other seats. So the question will be whether the swing is uniform across the state or not. It's very interesting that today, in the final hours, Chris Minns was really hitting seats that he hoped to win with margins of around 7%. You saw him at Oatley today, held by long-time Liberal MP Mark Curey, while on the other hand, Dominic Perrottet really had a more defensive stance, and we saw that in the final week. So that Labor's really on the attack, and they need to pick up some 6 seats, really, to be able to form minority government. As
Peter Credlin has been saying, and she's always right, but certainly on this issue where she turns around and says that they're two blokes, same suit, same thing, very polite, that has all helped Chris Minns. Chris Minns had virtually very little name recognition going into it. Laura's right about the fact that this is, of all the elections that I've either worked in or cared about, this is the one that people seem to care about the least. But the biggest factor that I think is going to change things here is, in New South Wales, this optional preferential voting system. Now, it took a couple of weeks to get this information out of the Electoral Commission, but I did. In 2019, I did a bit of a Richo, whatever it takes. Yes. Playing an away game for you tonight, Richo. Now, the total number of people in 2019 who just voted one and walked away, that's 61% across the entire state. There were just 4 electorates in the entire election last time that were under 50%. For the most vulnerable seats for the Liberal Party, I can tell you in places like East Hills, 71% of people last time just voted one and walked away. Places like the old electorate of Winston Hills is 70% and they walked away. The closest you get is Tweed at 58%, but basically everything is above state average of more than 60%. So that's why, as everyone's talked about, why I think this is a Labor night and it's the size of the win is about the primary vote. They made a tactical decision to try to sandbag the Teals, but that was a failure because the move that One Nation's going to put on here, be it single digits, double digits or even higher in other places, is going to come off the Liberal Party. The name Matt Keane is what we'll talk about a little bit later. But this has been a bizarre campaign from the government's perspective, I'd say, Shari, because it had an opportunity to turn around and put an L plate on Chris Minns. Chris Minns has not served a day in the parliament in government. He doesn't know how to run a ministry, but he's going to most likely be the Premier by the end of tonight or by the time counting resumes on Monday, because it stops at about 10:30.
10:30 tonight.
And they take tomorrow off.
Unprecedented. They can't get workers to count the votes after 10:30. But I think it's really interesting, the point you make, that neither leader has gone very hard on the other. I mean, they've made a show of this being a civil campaign of the two leaders being friends. But as we know, when it comes to fighting election campaigns, and Tony Abbott was the best at this, you've got to go hard on your opponent. Otherwise, no one in the public knows their negative side, and neither Chris Minns nor Dominic Perrottet have really got out the gloves when it comes to their opponent. Well,
also, you would have thought that the Libs would have learned out of that 2019 Mediscare campaign, but I can tell you what, all of the banners around all of the polling stations were about privatisation. As we saw in our Vox Pops, people are repeating that message. So we'll wait and see in the next couple of hours, but I think the reason you can start to say this goes the way that we think it will is because in New South Wales, more than 6 out of 10 people, they just vote one, no preferences, that's it.